Fantastic. Thanks everybody for joining. Again, this is Craig Luce joining. I'm the president of EHR Integration Services. And what we wanted to do to start with today is just take a minute, talk about the alliance that we have put together with 3 other companies, and really introducing this new organization that is going to focus on our healthcare technology industry called the Perfect Practice Alliance. Again, it was formed by 3 companies: EHR Integration Services, ourselves, National Physician Services, which is a large hosting and cloud hosting company in Connecticut, formerly known as Connecticut Physician Services, as well as Bite-Size Solutions. And really our goal is to bring a comprehensive suite of services to the marketplace. Again, we're really focused and specializing in bringing all of our talents together where we have some overlap between us, but the majority of what we do is really coming together cohesively to allow us to bring one big picture to you. Excuse me. And as you can see here, we're really focused on simply improving what the practice does by looking at it from a human approach. From that approach, you can see here the practice itself really is all about the patient, and that's what we want to focus in on, is what the patient does, and as a byproduct of that, we have many different workflows. We have a check-in workflow, provider workflows, back-office workflows, and of course it takes an entire technology infrastructure to hold all of that together. And so what we're going to be showing you today as we look at our certified applications is really just a piece of this overall alliance. Is that ability to focus in on what a patient is going to be looking at. And again, we're going to be doing that very specifically in 3 different applications: our Quality Information System, or our QIS application, which is obviously focused on a provider's perspective of how they treat the patient. Chart to PDF is all about the release of records and the ability to give the patient a copy of their chart, whether that is for a legal reason, an insurance audit, or simply to have that information. And eFiler is much more of a back office type of approach where as a patient, if I present myself to the front desk and I'm bringing in an electronic copy of my chart from a referring physician, eFiler gives us this very simplistic way to load that data directly into the TouchWorks application, minimizing our need for interactions with scanning, printing, anything of that nature. So just a quick highlight again: our Alliance, EHR Integration Services, NPS, and Bite-Size, and the 3 applications that we're going to take a look at. Now, just this week, I'm sure many of you know, the HIMSS conference is going on, and we're just returning from HIMSS, where we were very nicely invited and honored by Allscripts as being one of their featured partners in their Allscripts Open Technology booth, so in the ADP certified area. There's roughly 125, 130 Allscripts development partners currently in the program, and 6 of those partners were selected to be part of their featured products. And so again, we're very humbled and honored to be one of those 6 and looking at these applications. I'm going to go ahead and turn over to Jamie Steck here in a second. He's going to take you through what it takes to become a certified product, as well as take us through the applications, show you what they're all about, and allow you guys some time to have some time for question and answers. Jamie, I'll turn it over to you.
Hey, thanks, Craig. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Appreciate you taking the time again, and glad you'd take a few minutes with us here as we walk through these. We're very excited to have these applications in the Allscripts store. We really think and we really feel from a perspective of being a longtime partner with Allscripts that this is a great idea, and working with the open team to make the application more functional and more accessible to really enhance the application and provide to you those things that you might need in your workflows or in your clinics, the opportunities to make things easier and to make things happen. So we're very glad to take some time here, and we'll step through these in somewhat of a high-level detail. And we'll first start with our QIS product. QIS, or Quality Information System, really came back around when we first started looking into, or the government really introduced the PQRS measures, or the pay-for-quality type measures, where the providers really needed something to take and alert them to information that the patient might need at that given time, whether it's a flu shot or a diabetic aspirin regimen or smoking cessation. Counseling that patient on things that they'd needed at that time was really what the provider was looking for. Make sure that those quality metrics are never outdated, making sure that those things are always accounted for, and allowing the system to prompt in that real-time fashion things that need to be addressed and need to be taken care of, because many of you know that as our providers are working, they have many patients in their practices, and even though they do their best to remember their patients and what's going on with each of them, they don't, and they need that assistance. And so with our stoplight tool being right there in the banner bar, we feel like this is a great application to again remind those patient or providers what needs to happen at that time. With the Unity application, we've been able to open up many things here in the application itself, being able to provide more, quicker, faster information. Unity allows us to quickly find or update that patient with anything that has been assessed on the Problems tab, and being able to track that for the patients on the measures that you as an organization define and bill and manage yourself, and you do not need a programming degree to help understand or to write those measures or metrics that we have in able to building those for your clinic organization as you see your quality program to include. So this is the outline here of the QIS application. As you can see, it's a horizontal toolbar in the application, and by clicking on that, you're presented with this screen here. From this screen, you can see many different things that are happening. These windows here will open and close based on what you want to see. These are health measures or measure groups that we have created, like this you see here for the diabetes. Underneath that, you can include anything that you'd want or relate to that diabetes set and help track for that particular patient. We're going to step through a handful of these items here that you see on the screen. Certainly there's a lot more detail than we'll allow for this presentation, but we're going to hit some of the highlights here as we step through this particular application. What we felt was very important was, again, like I mentioned, our stoplight tool. Being able to really see and drill down at a quick glance, regardless of where you are in the TouchWorks chart, what's happening with that patient. We like the stoplight tool. Red, yellow, and green truly indicate something that is going on for that patient. Red being in the fact that there's several items missing for that particular patient. Other yellow would indicate that a few or a handful of those information items are missing or not accounted for or updated. And a green traffic signal, again, would indicate that all measures for that patient are taken care of or applied for that particular provider. QIS has grown up tremendously, if you will, with the Unity application, allowing us to find or measure items from all of these particular item types in the TouchWorks dictionary sets, from medications down to orders, all the way through findings, instructions, even supplies, or procedural type follow-up orders, down to document types and results will also satisfy the measures that you have set up for your particular clinic and your patients. So Unity has really opened this up to us to allow us to expand what can be tracked in QIS itself. As we see here, Doug is a 61-year-old patient with a yellow traffic signal. In reviewing the QIS dashboard, I quickly can determine the fact of, what are those items here that are outstanding that Doug needs to be addressed with. Health maintenance, smoking cessation have been addressed completely. It's under the diabetes measure that I can see that a few things are coming up or near due, along with the aspirin regimen that we have determined that Doug needs to be on is not completed or satisfied at this point. So these are things as a provider or even as a nurse I would be able to take care of and address at this time. QIS also has the ability to allow the bidirectional data flow to streamline that documentation for completed work. For this patient, we can see that the information or smoking cessation has not been addressed. By clicking on the Edit Action button, I can select the type of items here at the top of orders or smoking cessation education. I can choose a day that I am currently on or working on, and I can put in a current result here. And by so doing, then I've actually inserted that into the chart here, and apologize, it's a little bit small, but we've indicated in the item section here, in the order section, that we did counsel the patient to stop smoking. We encourage you to get your weight down, all the reasons that you should set, and quit smoking for yourself, as you can see here. So that instruction order now has been set, and all of these items that you enter through QIS can now be put in or placed in the actual TouchWorks chart, because that's where they go and that's where they belong. I can also add in or determine, if I want to, by clicking on the exclusion button, I can enter in an exclusion for any of these particular items that the patient might want to indicate. In this case, the patient might, refused to receive that information on the smoking cessation, and certainly that is a valid response. And so by so doing, you can see here in this middle line that we have now an exclusion that will no longer remind us that needs to be addressed, because the patient did indicate that they didn't want to receive that information anymore at this point. I can also, as a provider, indicate as I have a default frequency to follow up on and address these particular items. I have a default frequency set inside QIS, but as a provider or a caregiver, I can override those items and set those frequency items for myself if I want to follow up sooner or later as a caregiver for that particular patient. Inside of QIS, we also have the ability, and how the stoplight is controlled is by provider or by the caregiver logged in. I have the right here to be able to see what I want to see or what controls that stoplight for me as a provider by checking or unchecking these particular items in the measure preferences. As a health group or as your clinic, you may want to require some of these items to be included without the provider allowing them to choose or not to choose. So again, in the setup options, you have that ability to require certain items, but again, the provider or the caregiver again has the option to include or exclude items that control their stoplight tool. One thing that we've really worked hard on in the past little while is for QIS is to really make it available and friendly for the pediatric space. We do include the CDC immunization schedule in the release of our QIS application. Those certainly can be overwritten or modified to your local group's preferences. But again, we do include all of that, and the nice thing about it is that you can record those items as numerous items in a particular vaccination. If there are 3 immunizations in a particular measure, or for the polio vaccination, we can enter that here and saying that series 1 has been completed. The next time that it will be needed is in 6 months from now. Or you can see that here on the varicella vaccination that series is complete and it does not expire again because based on those guidelines that vaccination is complete. Another feature of QIS again is some reporting options. They're not They're not very detailed, but they are detailed enough to give you information on what's going on with your patients. As we continue to work and build the QIS application, we are trying to expand these and certainly want to add more, but we feel like what we're able to give you by using the QIS application is really a great cross-section of what needs to happen for those types of reports that you might need. As you can see here from the example on the screen, by choosing that analytical measure report, I can see under that diabetes measure that the particular measures in that measure group, I can see for me as the provider or any provider what the details are, how many total patients I have, and what is the percent of passing. I can drill down further from that and saying in these 8 patients, I can then see, which of my 8 patients are satisfied in that particular respect, or ones that I may need to call back in who are not satisfied with that aspirin measure and either do something about it or bring them back in and talk to them about it. A great example of this is like maybe a colonoscopy screening or a mammography screening campaign, where you then could export this information or report into Excel, sort that based on patients that have not satisfied that metric, and either call them or do a mailing campaign with the report that we have that would include the demographics for the patient, and do a mailing campaign to get them back in the office and to satisfy those particular items that might be missing. Again, here's some more detailed information here on a report that we have inside of that particular, inside of QIS based on the patient itself and what items in the measure groups that they have satisfied and which ones they haven't. And again, this could be exported into Excel for further analysis. The administration side of the application is very detailed and very easy to use. If you have even the simplest understanding of how the orderable item dictionaries and the resultable item dictionaries work inside of QIS, then building a measure is going to be fairly straightforward with you. Most of the time when we do training for new providers or new groups or administrators of the application, generally within a 2-hour session that training is complete and the users feel very comfortable at building further metrics that they want to apply for the group. We've even had the ability to train an accountant or the chief financial officer, and being an accountant, I can say that it's, if you can train an accountant, you can do pretty much anything. So again, we've built this to allow it to be very easy and very simple for the users to, again, customize that for their use and for the building out of the application. So at a high level, that is our QIS application. I know there's a lot more that we could drill down into, and at a later time, if you'd like, we could certainly dive in or do a personalized demonstration for you and your group if that's something that you would want to look forward to. At this time, I'm going to move into our Chart to PDF application. Chart to PDF is a great tool. Allscripts in the TouchWorks application has been able to capture a lot of great information, whether it's coming from a scanning facility or the records room, or it's the clinical notes from the provider, or any other piece of information that's being put into the chart. Now you have all of this information in here. Now what do we do with it? A lot of people and a lot of groups have desire to get to this information. They want to be able to get it out and be able to hand it to the patient if necessary, being able to customize that output to include it for potentially chart audits and legal audits, or even release of records that you might be doing for your clinic. Getting that information out of TouchWorks is now very critical, and saying, how do we keep it safe? How do we keep it protected? How do we manage this as there's so much information moving around? We think Chart to PDF is a great solution and have worked really hard on not only expanding the functionality in the product application due to the abilities now that Unity provides to us, but also the fact of being able to keep that information safe, as we all hear and know that there's so much fraud happening or breaches occurring in the healthcare space, that patients' information is being taken. So we certainly want to make sure that we keep that information safe. Our goal here is to create an output of the chart based on the information that we desire to give it. So I'm going to kind of preclude my conversation here as we dive into chart to PDF with this is the desired output that we want, whether it's a full chart here for the patient with the table of contents, and again as we go through this and at the end of this little section you're going to see a sample of that particular chart output and what it looks like. So let's dive in a little bit further and take a look at our new chart to PDF 4.0 application. And for those of you who might have seen this before, it looks a little different. We've certainly taken the time to make it a little bit more functional, a little bit easier, a little bit less click intensive, and make it a little bit better as far as the output goes and being able to search on those variabilities. Whoops, went too fast. So this is the chart to PDF application, again embedded inside the TouchWorks application, so that again as I have Christine test here in the context, when I click on the chart to PDF tab, her information is now showing that she is now the individual in my chart to PDF application. As I proceed through this example, then that's the information that I'm going to be bringing out. If now that I have, Christine in context, if I want to filter the date of the information that I want to select for Christine, if it needs to be a certain date range, I do that up here in the top section. I enter those dates and make that available here. Down below, I have what we think is one of the greatest features here in our new application, is the ability to use our advanced filters. These advanced filters are set up based on specialties, by owners, and by document types. And you also have the results here. If with the options that I wanted to, maybe I just want to see or release for cardiology. If I unclick here or just check cardiology, then only my cardiology providers are going to be available here, as well as my cardiology note types are only going to be available here. So it's kind of a cascading effect here. Based on what I choose here or here, these items become more or less based on what my choices might be. We have heard from our clients and really hope to have responded to them very well that things that you select here really gives you the options and the detail to drill down further into that and only getting out or providing what you need to see. Unity allows us to provide, based on our CCDA or continuity of care document, based on having several summary documents to see things in a clear and concise manner. Something that would be able to group those clinical items that we see here, or the items that would come out on a CCD, and group them in such a way that it can quickly be viewable and presentable for the providers or the persons receiving our exported chart document. These are a sample here of the items that we would be able to create for the summary documents if that particular patient has any results or history items or orders to display. If they do not, then those items don't show up in the history list. Here's a sample, a quick sample of our Christine in the fact of what her immunizations might look like. If we were to drill down into this or have the output, we would see this information here, that our influenza via the nasal has been done, and here's when it was done, and that status is now complete. As we drill down farther into the application, again, we can see here that the certain items are what's included in the note or what is going to be included in the export of the application. Again, I can either include those summary documents or exclude them or turn them off or on, again, giving you the flexibility to choose based on how you want the information to come out. Once you have all of your filters set, and again with our configuration page, we can default your most commonly used filters for you so that you can then filter by exception if you'd like. Down here in the bottom is just a few more housekeeping items, again, that are mainly configurable for you, but allow you to override or to name those items as you're working on exporting this batch for this particular patient. Here in this section, we would be able to say what we want to call the batch, what if it's a priority, and if that's even, normal or high priority, and what our disclosure reason might be. Here we have an assign to. We can select a team of individuals in the TouchWorks application. If we want to notify that team when this chart is done or complete, it would send them a task via the Allscripts tasking engine to let them know that this particular export is done and complete. The application also allows for the future starting of this particular output to allow this to start over the weekend or in a month from now, or so you can kind of, like the infomercial says, you can set it and forget it. You put those dates in here and again assign it to a team, and that would allow then this to be started at a future time. If you have multiple locations, and this is a very nice feature that we are excited to have, if you have multiple locations that you're releasing information for, you can have multiple addresses in here to account for different locations of that release, or maybe you're a multi-org environment. Again, this will allow for that to be covered so that by simply selecting from a drop-down list, the logos and the addresses and all of that information can be set on the particular release to match where it's being released from. So we feel like that's a great new feature that's added. Here's some output information, whether I want to combine the individual PDFs that are created for the charts. Do I want them combined? Do I want to delete the individual files? Maybe there's a purpose that I might need a specific page out of those individual files. So again, do I want to delete those or keep those? The inclusion of a cover page or a table of contents is also allowed to be chosen and added to the application or the output. The directory of where those items are to be stored. Chart2PDF does require its own server. It can be a virtual or physical server, and on that server, it can be determined where those batches are included. A user can also override what items are brought out for that particular file name, or what the merged file name would look like. I can also disable the password if I want to include a password on this, which I most likely would. I want to make sure I keep that safe. But if for some reason I wanted to disable that password or adjust what the password output would look like, I can also do that here or in the configuration style. Now that we've got all of that, once we hit the Generate the Chart button, here's what our display might look like. And I'll go a little bit slow here because I'm going to scroll some pages through. Here you'll see the cover page, our table of contents. Then we go right into the CCD application, or the first item in our summary documents. It's a little small here, but I wanted to bring out the page numbering here at the bottom. You'll see that we're on the CCDA summary, page 1 of 3. But in the overall patient extract, we're on the patient chart, we're on page 3 of 46. Here's the immunization summary. Here's the vital summary that's also included for that particular patient. The problem summary is included as well, and this just gives you an idea of what those items would look like. Here's a particular note, a cardiologist note, again, page 1 of 2, but yet I'm on page 18 of 46. So a small sample, really, of what the output would look like. Very clean, very precise, and again, very easy to maintain because it's a single PDF file. So how do I monitor those charts or batches that I have that I've put into the system? Well, we've created this other page here, of tab at the top called our Batch Monitor, where you're really indicated, or you're told exactly by the application what batches have been processed where they are, and again allowing you, the end user, to hyperlink to those particular outputs, or being able to search for one in the list is also added here in the batch monitor. So a lot of very powerful searching functionality that might exist. Here are the things that you need to know and for order to find a particular release that you've done, or needed to find one that you've done in the past. Again, very high-level overview. Again, but we're really excited to have our chart to PDF application. It's been a long, arduous process of rebuilding, but again, Unity has allowed us to do a lot of things here in bringing out things from the chart and the TouchWorks application in a very clear and precise manner. Finally, let's dive into our eFiler application. Very simple type approach for a particular application, but very powerful in that respect. When I was managing my clinic as the IT director for that clinic, one thing that I always found in our records room that was very much needed was the ability to, why were we printing out items in various locations in the clinic only to have them shipped to the records room to be scanned back in? We recognized this problem, and we heard that from our clients, and we said there's got to be some way that we can, you know, try and avoid that, because why print the paper only to scan it back in? eFiler does just that. By any means of bringing in electronic documents at the point of care, we can simply upload them from any file type, essentially, and reduce that cost of printing the items and rescanning them in, and again creating more work downstream. So I always like to give the example of how this would really work, or an example of this is like our sleep lab. Each bed produced about 12 pages, colored pages, that they wanted to print out, and we had 8 beds running every night in our sleep study program. So 8 beds times 12 documents, you know, and they printed them out all in color, only to have them sent over to scanning to scan back in, and then, you know, have it populate into the chart. So eFiler does this. It simply takes the fact that he's saying, let's, again, buy a horizontal toolbar. I'm presented with this little screen here. A few clicks as we'll go through them. If I want to upload something on a particular day, I simply enter the day. That's populated here into that document date line. The next item, I give it as a document type. By choosing the document type, again, this is from the drop-downs in your application, so you can again choose that document type. The owner is also chosen, again chosen from the provider, from the provider dictionary. I next then scan out to a file, whether it be on a thumb drive or on a shared directory, somewhere in your network. I can then browse to that particular file. I simply click upload. Now, don't want to overlook this possibility here. If I wanted to send it right to the provider, I can check this box here, again based on my preference or the program preference settings. I can check this here to enable tasking review. So then it will generate a review document task to that provider and allow them to see it and be notified of it as I'm bringing it into the system. Once I've done that and put that in, again, this discharge summary is populated right here, and again, then I have it right here in my chart so that I can see it and have it ready and available for me as the provider without having to scan that off, print it off, scan it back in, and waste that time downstream essentially. We have a lot of our clients using this for when patients bring in their patient record or medical record from another provider, whether that be on a disk or a thumb drive. And so we're able to take those documents that are given to us, generally in PDF form is what we're finding, but they can be various other document types, and allow them to post them right to the patient chart. Kind of a simple application, and if you can see there, just right there, just wanted to let you know that it tells you that the document was loaded successfully. There is one more piece of eFiler that I wanted to just describe briefly, it's kind of an automated process behind the scenes. So the same functionality that you see here, maybe you have an automated process or a process that you have in your clinic where let's take ultrasounds for example, that somebody is, they do an ultrasound, it generates a report, you save it off to a network drive, and you do this, or the technician has, 30 or 40 ultrasounds in a day. Instead of doing these one by one for each patient, we can also take the e-filer automated process and read those ultrasound reports based on the file name that we save it as, and do the same type of process, but just behind the scenes, more of an automated process. I hope that makes sense, but again, instead of doing it just one by one, we're doing it in a batch form that occurs or triggers, many times throughout the day. Again, at a high level at this point, Jay, I'll turn it back over to you to see if there's any questions that have come in on the chat line, to see if we can answer any questions for people, and turn it back over to you.
Great. Thanks very much, Jamie. Nice job going through all three products. There's quite a bit of information, and I think you did a nice job delivering it. So now we're going to open the webinar to Q&A. And if you would go to webinar control panel and hit the red arrow if you've got it reduced, and open it up and go to the section under questions and type a question in. We will I'll be happy to review it with Jamie, and we'll have it answered. And we actually have both Jamie and Craig available if you'd like to ask a specific question to one or both of them. So to get things started, we have a question that we're commonly asked while we're waiting for people to type in a question, and that is, do you have any evidence that QIS has changed provider behavior?
Yeah, great question, Jay, and as yes, we do. To answer the question, we do have many clinics proving this day in and day out. In my own clinic that I ran, but even in some more recent studies that we've ran, many of our clients are proving that out, where they've measured a particular measure group beforehand. How successful were we to indicate smoking cessation for our patient population? How successful are we to get the information to, to remember the diabetes foot exam? And what we're seeing from before and after measurements, even within a month or two, we're seeing a multi-fold increase in the number of patients that are being assessed for those items because the application is prompting them to do so. One quick example, a particular clinic was doing the same thing for smoking cessation. The group as a whole on the pre-measurement was at 8% compliance rate on smoking cessation for patients 13 years old and older. After the group mandated the question in QIS to be accounted for all patients and all providers, within 2 months that clinic went from 8% to over 88% in 2 months in compliance to that question alone. So yes, it does work.
Well, that's great. Thanks, Jamie. That's very strong evidence. What about the number of providers that are currently utilizing QIS?
QIS, our provider count right now is growing as well, but given last count, even about a month ago, we have about 3,800 providers across our client base using the application at this point.
Great. Okay.
So a well-established product in the field, and it's been there for quite, for numerous years. At least it's been 5 years since that application has been put into play.
Great. So it's well-established, and it's being used by several. Okay, there's a question here on chart to PDF, and you said it could be used for legal reviews and insurance audits and so on. So what kind of ROI have clients seen with the chart to PDF product?
The return on investment really for the chart to PDF product really shows up greatly in that insurance audit side. And I didn't really talk about this, but I will briefly here right now. One of the strong features inside of chart to PDF is the ability to create batches of charts or exports for many patients, whether it be 1,000, 2,000, even 5,000 to 10,000 patients at a time. The application can handle that and do it very nicely. and do it without a lot of human intervention. So by simply uploading a CSV file of the MRNs of the patients given to you either by the insurance company or with a little bit of Can you hear me?
I can now. We lost you for a minute.
Yep, sorry, got tied up there for just a second, so my apologies. With a little bit of manipulation from your IT team or with some help, we can get you the MRN file. We can load that. The system can then generate the batch of 5,000 patients and within a short period of time, even a small number of days for 5,000 patients, the application then would notify you that this chart extraction is done. You can call Blue Cross Blue Shield and saying, here's your charts, here's all 5,000 of them, how do you want me to get them to you? And nobody came to your office, you didn't have your staff doing these 5,000 one by one. So the return on investment really shows up in that batch processing side of this. And many of our clients that we have helped implement this, we're seeing that return within even a short period of time, even 3 to 4 months, sometimes sooner, depending on the number of charts that they're exporting out for that release or those chart audit requests.
Great. And it looks like we have a follow-on question to that, Jamie, and it's about auditors. Can they gain access to chart to PDF without getting into TouchWorks?
They certainly can. We have the ability to have a standalone product of chart to PDF, whereby simply having or tying this to the Active Directory login structure that you and your organization might have created. If you created a username for the auditor, then they can use that to gain access to chart to PDF and get that information out that they might need, but again, not have full access to the TouchWorks environment. Yes, Jay.
Great. Well, that's convenient. Okay, here's one for eFiler, and they want to know if eFiler can automate tasks to the owners.
Can eFiler assign tasks to the owner?
Assign tasks to the owners, yes.
Yeah, that's that functionality that we saw there, where you can assign that task or that review document task to the owner that you specify when filing the document, yes.
Okay, and then looks like one more for eFiler. Where do the files get stored?
The files are stored in the scanning archive, or in the warehouses there for the scanning archive. So we do capitalize on that Unity application there to file those documents in the scanning application and the scanning warehouse. So physically, if that's where they're stored, but again tagged in the database, much like the scans are.
Great. I'm just going to wait another little bit to see if any more questions come through here. But it looks like we're done for now. So Jamie, do you anything you want to say in closing, and then we'll sign off?
Hey Jay, I actually see one that came through, so maybe they rolled so fast. So let me just go back. So a question did come in. What is the cost for chart to PDF and eFiler, and is that org specific? And so let me just go ahead and tackle that for a second. And the answer is
Sure,
that chart to PDF and so all three of these applications, we have two models to actually license the application. There's a subscription model that obviously has a lower upfront cost and recurring in nature year over year. And we have a licensing model that has a larger upfront cost and a lower recurring maintenance fee year over year. So again, each one of those has that model, and I'd be happy to speak with anyone on the exact costs for them. But it is absolutely controlled, if you will, or has a factor into it based on the number of users in the application. So that's really the short answer to it. Is we would have a conversation, we would gather the number of users in the system, and then the cost is calculated on that. And again, we can look at a subscription model as well as a license model.
Great, thanks, Craig. Sorry I missed that one.
No problem.
it looks like that is the end of the question stream. So again, I'll turn things back over to Jamie or you, Craig, if you have any, either one of you have any closing comments, and then we'll sign off.
I have no comments. Again, appreciate your time today, and thanks for attending and being part of it.
All righty, thanks very much.
Absolutely.
And, we'll be in touch.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
everybody.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.